There is nothing better than a daughter.
Good evening, everyone. So glad that you made it. This evening we have the very distinct privilege of spending the evening with Miriam Samuel. I have had the personal pleasure and it's been so wonderful. I say this every time, it's so true. One of the very best parts of being a rabbi, I think in general, certainly in our community, is the people that you get to meet and spend time with. And the joy that I've had of being able to spend time with Miriam and with Bernard of blessed memory is very, very dear to me. And hear the stories, and I know that I've only heard the tiniest fraction of both what has been and just of extraordinary human beings. That would be a wonderful opportunity, for our community to be able to learn a bit tonight about Miriam's experiences. I'll ask you questions, Miriam, as we talked about, life a little bit before the war and during and after. I also, I recognize, and have been learning even better, there is more to be told than could possibly be shared in one evening, which is why what I offered when I spoke with Helen, when I spoke with Miriam, is let's spend the evening tonight. We'll maybe call it a night around 8:45, 9, and then if there's more, then we can have another evening. People can come and talk to you. I think that anyone who would take the opportunity to come and spend some time sitting with Miriam would walk out a better human being for it. So without really going a whole lot further, I want to thank you, Miriam, for joining us.
Thank you.
So I was wondering, just to begin, if you could tell us a little bit about your family, where you were from, and a little bit about growing up before the war.
Well, the country was called Czechoslovakia, but it was mostly Russian people living there. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of jealousy because the Jews had the business and they were the farmers. And my father was talking about my father, but I'm talking about now the whole group of Jews that lived there were very religious. Most of them were stramlich. My father didn't. But my father was a yeshiva bucher. And
so your father, was he not a chassid?
No, not a chassid.
Huh.
I mean, he was a chassid in his own way, but he didn't wear a shtramel. Okay? And so, but my father was always davening before the Numid because he was the only one who could read the Torah real good because he went to the yeshiva. And my mother lived there all her life. She was born in that town.
What was the name of the town?
Dulovo.
Dulova.
Yeah. And in Hungarian, it's Dulfovo. So, but the country has changed hands all the time. It seems like first it was Hungary, and then it was Czechoslovakia, and then it was the Ukraine, and it's changed things. But the people in general were very jealous of the Jews. Mm-hmm. So, and of course we had the cheder for the children. And
what age did children study in the cheder?
In the cheder from the time they were little, 4 or 5 years. And,
Until what
we
age?
We hired them ourselves because I had 7 brothers, so it was a continuous thing. And
how old did children study in the cheder? How old were they when they finished?
When they finished, they never finished because one finished and went to the gymnasium, but they were all too young. I had a brother that was 3 years old.
I meant in general, children who were in cheder.
The other children, sometimes they went to the yeshiva from there, mm-hmm. and sometimes they learned some profession and worked.
And so, what age was that when they left the cheder?
Usually it was when they were about 14, 15, 16, I don't know, different people It depended on the child and on the parents. And so that was the general idea about living in a small town. It was close enough to walk on Shabbat with an Erev to the next town. It was that close. Mm-hmm. And anyway, my father and mother were my mother was wearing a wig. She had her hair shorn when she got married. Mm-hmm. And I had to cut it with a machine every couple of weeks. Wow. So everybody had a beard. So, but they also, the Jewish people, had most of the businesses, the grocery stores. My father was a raconte, so he had two government things that they gave him a license, tobacco and liquor. So we had a bar and tobacco, and everything was separate. So we lived in a big house.
So he sold the alcohol and the tobacco like in a store? He had his own store?
No, we had, as I say, it was a small town. Mm-hmm. So people just came in to drink. We had a bar.
Okay. In her house? In your house there was a bar?
In my house, in our house, yes.
Okay. And at the bar they also sold the tobacco?
No.
Separate?
That's separate.
Got it.
Yeah, so...
you never offered me a drink all these years.
Well, I'll tell you something. When somebody was drunk, we had a cellar, and I used to go and bring up the liquor, and my mother used to say, "Chutze mayim, chutze yayin," because when they were already drunk. So that was...
Chutze mayim, they didn't have any water?
No, to put water in the liquor because they were already drunk.
Got it. Okay, water down their drinks for them.
Yeah, right. So that's the way we lived. And on Shabbos we had a Shabbos goy. And on Friday my father would sell him, because you had to sell tobacco. My father had to sell him Friday a certain amount of tobacco, and on Saturday night he returned the money.
Mm-hmm. So that way people could still buy tobacco over Shabbat when your father couldn't sell it.
Well, and he just stayed in our house during Shabbos. So that was my childhood, and then the things started happening with Germany. My father read 3 newspapers. One was actually from the United States, from New York. I remember it was brown, with brown pictures. And the Warschauer Blatt was called it was a newspaper, and another newspaper, I think local. And so we knew everything was going on, and it was very worrisome because we heard about the Russians were selling wheat to the Germans, and my father said they're preparing for a war when I was still small. So, but I think this is not the important things. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the more serious things.
As you wish.
But my father was very religious. He was offered things for being a chazan and all of that. He was, anyway, my grandmother just had 2 sons, that's also, they were both yeshiva workers.
And did your uncle live in the same town?
No. They lived someplace else. We had to take the train.
Okay. And you said your mother was from that town?
Yeah, my mother
her
was.
family.
Yeah, my father moved when we got married. My grandfather died from the war. After the war, there was an influenza or something, and he died then. So my mother had a house, and so my father moved there. So, but I'm going to talk now about when the time became very serious, and we had to think that we heard that in Germany, the Jewish women who were working for non-Jews had them take off their clothes and wash the floors with their clothes. It was in the newspapers. And all kinds of horrors that was going on in Germany at the time. So I remember that we were thinking of how to get away. For me, my father wrote to my family in the United States, would they please take our children? Because I had 7 brothers. And
were you the only girl?
The only girl. I was the second. I had an older brother. And he said, and they said that it's a depression here too. So, and they were kids, so he wanted at least 1 or 2 children to be saved. He knew what was coming. And for me, he made a false passport so that I can go to England with the kinder transport, but I was too young. And I couldn't go because nobody else was going from our town, from our area. So then we were the first who, then the country changed. It became the Ukraine, then it became the Russia, then it became Hungary. It's changed to Hungary. And each time they put out a white flag in the window, whoever was the people. And they took away all the Jewish businesses.
What year was this?
This was in before 1940, 1938, 39. I can't remember the dates. So they took away our business, and they just gave it next door to somebody. And so we couldn't make a living. When the Hungarians took over, we were living in the Carpathian, and there was a way to someplace to fight the war. So they stayed in our town. They took over most of our house for the doctors and for the hospital. And we couldn't make a living because that's just the way it was. We were for a long time without business. And so I used to bake rolls to sell, and my brother used to carry them along when they were marching to sell them rolls to the soldiers. And they had their panzers and their all the munitions in our town. So that was the first part of the thing. Then we did all kinds of things to make a living. There came Hungarian soldiers who were Jewish. They didn't do anything yet in Hungary to the Jews. And they told my parents that we as children, me and my brother, could still have, we knew about liquor, we could still sell to the Jewish soldiers the liquor. And my brother would run around with a basket of rolls and sold to the soldiers, also because their bread was old and by the time they got it.
Did your family do any baking before the war, or this was a new business?
No. And my mother didn't do it because I did it. Uh-huh. And I baked rolls about 5-6 times a night. I didn't sleep. First of all, they occupied where my bedroom was. and then I slept in the daytime. And then all at once, then the Hungarians were there. The population from the town appointed themselves as the police or something. And they came and took us a Saturday morning about before my father went to school. So it was early, about 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning. They woke us up, and neighbors came and they said, pack your things, take all of your children, and you're going to sit in a place where they put us.
And these were people that you knew? These were your neighbors all those years?
That's right. Even the people whom we hired to sell.
Yeah.
Their father, yeah. Okay. So you have to know they're Ukrainian, they're Russians or whatever. That was their language. And so then they just took from our town a few families because they didn't take the people who were not as well off. So they could take over whatever you had. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of land and stuff like that too. They took us there on Saturday, and they told us to bring all of our jewelry and for 3 days food. And so the only thing we had on Shabbos is we used to make our own farfel, and we baked challah and bread, so we took those, some. And then they took us to the train and put us on the train, and we were sitting there all Shabbos. And they brought people from other towns also. And the train was full. We stayed there until that evening, and then they took us to the border of the Ukraine. And I remember we were riding through the night. They took us at night by the time they gathered all the people. So when we came to the border, my father got up and he said, "Is there any Hungarian officers here?" They said yes, because it was the border from. Mm-hmm. And my father said, "I am Moroccan," which is mean I was wounded in the war, and my father, my grandfather, everybody was born here. They said that we are not citizens of their country. Mm-hmm. That was their excuse. And so he said, "Are you a Jew?" My father said, "Yes." He says, "If you're a Jew, you're not a citizen." And we got unloaded from the things, and we went, that was on the border, to a town. And then we were taken over by like a Gestapo, but they were Ukrainian people. They wore their, I don't remember, brown or black shirts and weapons and whips. and all of that, and they marched us for 3 weeks through their country, around and around. And we walked daily at least 60 miles. And whoever couldn't keep up was killed in the back, like older people. And I had a younger brother, my youngest brother was 3 years old, and I carried him tied around my neck in a tablecloth, sometimes in the front, sometimes in the back, because he certainly couldn't. They would have killed him right away. And so I was always lagging a little bit behind. And then these people who were herding us like animals changed places in every town. When we came from one town to the next, they changed with the people from there. And they did the same thing.
So the soldiers were always fresh and you were always tired?
That's right. Once in a while they brought us to a lake or something, at which we went in to cool off our feet and drink water and stuff like that. That was lasting 3 weeks. Then they took us to a church, and outside the church. And there was, the day before, fighting between the Germans and the Russians. And the whole ground was covered with blood, the grass, and they had us sit down there and sit, and there were flies, and it was in the summer. This was in about June. And after we sat there for a certain length of time, they told us to get up and get on the road again, and they brought us to Stanislavov. Stanislavov was a big Jewish city. And there, at the Jewish center, they brought us to the Jewish center. It was already a ghetto. They already made a ghetto there. They brought us in there, and they gave us, I don't know, some type of a piece, just cooked plain in water, horse beans or something. It had anyway, I never ate it before, a handful to eat. But before then, then they took us, the Germans, well, still the same people, same people, took us to a place where we were going, where the prisons were. And we went around and around in a circle about 3 times. There were the same type of buildings. I think those were the prisons and the things. And they had us stand by 4, like we had to walk by 4. If not, they hit you. And that was the first time I saw a German. A German officer with a big dog. And everybody took off their hat. I guess we were told before or something, I don't know. Everybody took off their hat and stand at attention. It was between 2 buildings. And then one old man was, just didn't know what's going on. And the German had the dog kill him right there in the front of us. So he just went and tore him apart because he didn't take off his hat.
Nobody could move.
No. We were standing by 4 against a wall, and there was a building across the things. And then he left, and after a while they told us to sit down where we're standing. Not where we fit, but where we're standing. So we were sitting very close together with everybody. We couldn't move. And they didn't feed us for 10 days, for 9 days, pardon me. And we were sitting there and we asked for food. There were watchmen running, going by, and they said, "You're going to eat your children." And of course, everybody was weak and stuff.
Did you get any water?
No, but at night there was from the drains, from the roofs, falling water and things. So at night we used to go and have a hand of water and drink the water. The 9th day, and in the meantime we saw people, business people with their attaché
Attaché cases?
Attaché case business people walking well dressed and all of that, walking in to the next across the building, and we never saw them come out, but we heard screaming at night. So they killed them and they took them out the other way, I think.
My God.
So we were there, and then came a lot of jeeps or military type of vehicle with officers, with Germans and their weapons stretched out, and they say, "Anybody who wants to work, come this way, to the..." And I went too because I wanted to work so that I can eat. Mm-hmm. And I took care of my little brother because my mother had every 2 years a child, so she had to take care of the rest. So my mother came running after me and she says, "Come back. You have to pretend that this child is yours." I was 17, almost 17, not quite. And I wore a scarf because I carried my little brother and the whole way. My mother took care of the other ones, and so she came in. 3 brothers went, and my father. The rest of them were small, were young kids. So they took him away for work. And then we found out that they took him to open graves where the people from the ghetto had to dig for a bread. And they shot him over the thing. So some of them were dead and some were not. And they buried them. When I heard that, well, I was someplace else already. But anyway, then the 10th day, we were still there. The women and the children and the old people who couldn't work. And what they did is they threw from the windows sandwiches and things what the people who came before and died inside left in their lunches. So we all were grabbing the food, and then they took us from there. They told us march out, and we went between, as I say, buildings, and they took us into the ghetto. And there was there was a place called Rudolf's Mill. My daughters found it in the things, in the computers.
Information about it on the internet.
Rudolf's Mill. It was a 4-story building. And there were from about 4 or 5 boards put together beds on those type of things on both sides. And they were all together, just enough to get through. And that's where we were supposed to stay. Me and my mother and my brothers went all the way to the 4th story. And then there came some Jewish nurses from the ghetto. This was in the ghetto. From Jewish nurses the first day when we came. And I had, from walking so much, and I had a swollen leg, and they looked at it and it was blue, and they said that they're going to amputate it. And I had a big infection on my leg. So then we had Jewish police watching us, and they weren't supposed to let us out. But my mother saw a horse having a bowel movement while the program was going. And she said to the things, "Please let me go and get this. I have to put on for my daughter's foot." And he let us. That was the first day. And so she put it, the warm stuff on my foot, and it showed where the infection was on my things from walking. I think I was walking barefoot, but I can't remember for sure. And
So did that help make your foot better, or it was showing where the infection was?
it just showing where the infection was. It became white. And so my mother got she got a knife and a needle, and she gave it to me, and she said, "Nobody is in here, because you have to do yourself the surgery." And I remember putting in the needle inside in my bottom of my foot and cutting with a knife that she brought me. And my foot got better.
You got the infection out.
It was full of pus.
Right.
So, and so then I was the only young person there without children, that didn't have any children, because I came with my little brother as I'm his mother. So they were gonna, the nurses said that when they saw that, they are gonna make, there was already built in a first aid, that they're gonna bring me empty bottles, and I can put them out there, and maybe they can bring them some medication and all of that. So I was there for a few days, but they never came back because they wouldn't let them, I guess. So then the woman who was in the kitchen was a German, also an immigrant, a German woman. And she was very, very nice. And she says, "You are going to be with me working as a helper in the kitchen." And the only things that they gave us is some grain to cook. and the cattle. There was a lot of false stories of people. It's a lot of people. And they were all disabled, or mothers and children.
Where did they take all the people who were working? And did they actually take them to a labor camp, or they killed them all?
They killed them all. Every one of them. That's why I was surprised about my brother, that they said he is alive. Mm-hmm. But I think, my mother told us that whenever they take you someplace that you don't want to go, jump off, run away, whatever. So I don't know what's happened to him, because we couldn't find him. Mm-hmm. So that way they, I'm sorry, I have to take a breath.
That's okay. You want a drink of water?
No.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I worked in that kitchen. I was washing the kettles that they made the food for us, which was some grain. It wasn't flour or anything, grain, just grain and water. And it was hot. You know, she made it hot. And then I washed the kettles and the dishes, whatever there was. And everybody got a dish, kind of whatever it was. It wasn't a plate or anything. It was just what the Jewish community gave. And we were standing in line to get the food, usually, once a day. I was in Rudolph's Miller. We were there all through the winter. This happened in the spring. Then they took us, and we were there all the way through the winter. So, and then what happened is they came. One time they just said that they didn't give us any food. The kitchen was locked for a whole few weeks. I don't exactly remember how many weeks, but it was a few weeks, and we were all starving. And then we saw the kitchen open, and you know, you smell if something is, and they all got in line before anything was cooked. And it was, again, just grain. Mm-hmm. Usually it was wheats or oats or something like that. And everybody was standing in line. The whole place was surrounded inside. It had a big place. It was surrounded with German jeeps and soldiers with their weapons. And people were standing to get the food, you know, even just warm water and salt or whatever. And I said to my mother, why don't they know they're going to die? And she says, well, at least they're going to die with something in their stomachs. And so she made me and her also stand for that soup. And because we were on the 4th story, we decided to go up there. And we couldn't hide any place because we just had those little beds. There were no things. So, and they were very close together. So, anyway, they went floor by floor, gathering up the people with dogs, and they put them on their jeeps and left and came back. And then that was around noontime. And then it was because we were on the 4th floor, it started to get a little darker. It was darker already. And my mother, we hid under one of those, but you could see there. So when they came to the floor, everybody went by themselves. You didn't have to go to look for them. But when it came to us, my mother said, "Don't move." So they said, the dog right away knew that there is somebody. So my mother said, "I'm coming." "Yeah, come." And she got out of there and took that little bed and pushed her down so they couldn't see me. And so they took her. But my mother always told to me how to escape, how to take, And so they took her. And I remember I was lying on my chest, with my legs rolled up. It was knocking so hard that I thought it's going to make a hole in the floor. And then it was quiet.
What was knocking? Your heart was pounding.
My heart was. It's interesting how something can be so loud, and the building was empty. That's it. So I stayed there all night. And in the morning, I got up and I looked around, and nobody was there, and the gate was open. Everybody was taken away.
Including your mother?
Including my mother. And I got out. It's interesting how you think first of yourself that you're surviving. You're there, you're alive. So I walked out, and I was in the ghetto. The woman who used to be the cook saw me because people lived too much together. And she called me in. And I stayed there for about 2 days in the heating room downstairs. And she gave me some food. And then she found my mother walking down the street. My mother jumped off. It was getting dark. She jumped off one of their trucks and hid between where she saw trees. And so she walked in to look for me. And then they were killing everybody from the ghetto. There were Jewish police, and the police were supposed to gather people whom to kill. And they knew it. And they said, if you don't want to do it, then we'll kill you and your family, or your wife, or whatever. I remember, somebody had to take somebody like an uncle or somebody. The police had to go and choose the people. And they were, and for giving them the people, what they did, the Germans, they give the person a loaf of bread. There was very little food available. And it got to the point, I think I was hiding there for a week or two with my mother. Maybe not even that long, I don't remember exactly how long, but I remember we were in the cellar, like where the heater was. Then we heard all of that, and we said, we already got this far, we're not going to die now. So she took me, and we went to find out where they're taking the dead people, because they were dying anyway. And they took them in wagons, horse and wagons. They took the dead people, kind of full. And we followed between the houses where they taking them, and they were taking them to the Jewish cemetery, I think. The people who died at home or whatever. I think, or they killed them. I don't know what was happening. But so what we did is we hid by a house close to the cemetery. And when the wagon was, they opened up the wagon, gate, me and my mother, usually one person was taking these dead people, you know, with this. We hold on to the side of the things with the dead, hanging down a little bit. And when they went through the gate, there were tall grasses already. And we both jumped off. My mother told me all the time what to do. Jumped off, and we hid in the deep grass, like it was water there, you know, so then we jumped off there, and we stayed there all day, because if we would have gotten up, somebody would have seen us, and people were working in the field. This was kind of the spring. So we walked through, at night we walked. We didn't know where we were going. And we walked to the next town. We came to a town. And we went from house to house that we thought maybe Jewish people live. And were trying to find a mezuzah and outside. Finally, I found a mezuzah. And we stayed there. You couldn't wake them up, because they would think, they would get scared and think that they came for them. And that was a small town again. And so the woman came out with mush and milk to feed her cat. And I looked at that and I said, oh gosh, could you give me some of that? Anyway, so she called up some people and told them that we survived from Stanislav. They knew that they were killed. I mean, you know, news travels. And so she, I don't remember where my mother stayed, but an old lady took me in. And she had another person from Germany that they brought there from Germany too, before, but they were not with us. And they, well, anyway, so this old lady wanted me to help her go to get some food and stuff, and so I carried it. And she had there this other man living with her, a young man. And when we came in, he hung himself from this. They had things that rolled up, screens for windows.
Like a window blind.
Window blind, yeah. And he hung himself on that string. And I had to cut him down. There wasn't any help from somebody else. And then we started walking again. We stayed there a few days in this place. And they gave us something to cook ourselves. It was also some type of a grain, not rice, but it was something like that. And so me and my mother stood by the stove and cooked it and mixed it and ate it before it was cooked.
Because you were so hungry.
Of course. Then we started again walking at night. And the only things that we saw is we didn't stop at any towns. We just kind of walked. Because my mother's sister had a son-in-law, and the Jewish, what were they called? Anyway, they were the workers. And so, and he wrote letters and left in towns whereabout he is. But we didn't know how to get there or anything. Just go until you find them, I guess. So we walked we walked from about a couple of weeks after Pesach until in the fall. And we finally found these Jewish workers. The Jewish men were workers by cleaning up the roads, by picking up the munition from the roads, or whatever they were told to do. And they had Hungarian officers take care of them. It was called the munkaszolgálatos. Instead of a weapon, they had a shovel. So we got to that place. We didn't go into the place because we didn't want to be found out. So we went next door to a hill between where they were staying, and it was maybe 10 minutes walk or something like that, up a hill and where we were hiding. And we somehow let him know that we're there. And so he and a friend of his were sharing their meal, and they brought us a meal every night.
This is your aunt's son-in-law?
Yeah.
Okay.
My aunt's son-in-law. He survived, and he died now, but anyway, and that was fine for a while. But then we were going around looking for something to eat. You know, is it from the ground? Is it, you know? So we were caught by Hungarian soldiers. And they put us in a prison.
Where were you at this point? Do you know the name of the place where you were?
Well, it was in the wilderness.
Okay. Was it near any town? No, just open.
No, they didn't keep the Jewish things near a town. So. But they were just going out and clearing the roads, the roots, right. You know, and the munition and all of that. That was called the munkaszolgálatos. And then they put us it was a little house-like, and it was all dirt to walk down, like in a cellar. Mm-hmm. And there were no house. It was just looked like a little house. And there were other people there. People who escaped from where they were shooting, being shot. So they escaped, and they caught them. So they are there in that prison in there, very giving up. Now they were Polish, and we could speak Hungarian. So the watchman who were going around the building, that little building, was talking. They said it's going to be a dark night tonight, and we can take him out and kill him. And my mother said, no. She says, not now, we're already by the border. And she said to the people, it was kind of very deep, but like two people had to go one on top of the other to get the third one out, that deep. My mother said to them, listen, I think we have a way, because they were like vents for breathing, openings. She said, and it was dirt. The walls were dirt and everything, just dug out. My mother said, if you will let my daughter get out first, because this and this is what we heard, then then everybody can escape. Almost everybody. Help them pull them out or something, because it was dark. Mm-hmm. So, you heard them walk around the things, the building, then their boots. So, well, anyway, they said, no, we don't want to do it. We escaped from a place where we saw all the people got naked, and they all shot them, and we ran away, and we're not going to go through that again. And my mother said, I'll tell you what, if you let my daughter go first, then I'll go last. Okay? So I got out the first one. And my mother told me, run as far as you can from here. So I ran into, you know what a mortuary is? Where there is water and long weeds.
A marsh?
A marsh. Yeah. I ran into a marsh, almost waist long, deep. And I was stuck there. I stayed there. And then about an hour later, my mother came. She escaped too. I don't know how, but she escaped also.
Did all the other people go out or no? Just her? Huh.
So they told her, if you want to be killed there,
It's up to you.
So anyway, so we found each other. And then we went, we were sleeping like back to back, sitting, at night, so we could see in every direction and maybe run or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we were sleeping like that. And I had a dream, and I found myself walking on a ladder high up. And I looked back and I saw my father very, very small, far away. And the person who was holding the ladder was, he says, "Don't be afraid, that's my dad." My father said to me, "Don't be afraid, go, that's my dad." And I continued to walk, and I don't know, I probably woke up afterwards. And in the morning, when we both were awake, both of us said at the same time, "Why don't we just take a chance and go across the border?" And we did. But that nephew of ours, my aunt's son-in-law, he hired somebody to take us, and he took us part of the way and took the money, and he said, you can do it yourself. Mm-hmm. So we walked across, and we came to Munkac or Munkac, I think. My aunt had money there at the airline station, so that if we come across...
At the Jewish agency.
Hmm?
Not airline.
What?
The Jewish agency.
She had money at the Jewish agency?
Oh, no. My aunt Samarivka...
At the train station?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Train station, okay.
Because the nephew told her that we were there. He wrote a letter to her.
Okay, so you sent a letter to say that there's money at the train station for her.
Yeah. So we came across. I looked like a monkey. My feet were scratched and dirty, and I was barefoot. And my hair were like they weren't combed for months. And we came to the railroad station, and the tickets were there. We got on the train. I hit my feet onto the thing so nobody will see. And we came to my aunt, the one who sent the money. And my husband's parents lived next door. They were in-laws. And she made a big dinner for us when we got there and all of that. And we ate it all, and then it was fall. And we went outside, and we shook a plum tree, and I picked up my dress, the one I had on. And we were eating the plums, and my father-in-law, may he rest in peace, said, "Those women are crazy." I just saw them eat a big dinner. Well, that isn't the end of this yet. Then we stayed with my aunt for about a week, and we went home to our town. We came there, and a lot of the stuff from the house was taken out.
Was there anybody left there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There were like a great aunt of mine was left. She was about 90 years old. So what's happened then is we had to go to the gendarmes, to the Hungarian gendarmes. Melden zich wat, to say we're here. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they said that the only way we could have come if we were prostitutes for the Germans. You know, survive.
Right.
And I was 17 or 18 years old, or 17, I think. Still 17, or maybe 18, I don't know. And so I was escaping to the next, when we had to go every week. I went to the next town, and my mother said she didn't know where I was, and she went. And then we saw an ad in the paper about somebody in Nyíregyháza, which was another Jewish city, is looking for somebody to take care of her children while she's working in her shoe store. You see, they didn't touch yet the Hungarians. They were still, okay. So...
and how far away was that?
Hungary? Yeah. Oh, it was by train, I think. It was another country. Yeah. I mean, by train it was 4 or 5 hours train ride. Mm-hmm. I don't know. was far.
Did you go there?
My mother somehow got together the money to buy me a ticket for the train. And I was supposed to go there and say, here I am, you know, you need somebody to take care of your children, I'll do it. But those people in the meantime, the way the newspaper, and when we, you know, they moved away to Budapest.
Yeah.
They sold their business because they saw what's coming, I don't know. So everybody went to Budapest. So I didn't have where to go. Now, the way I found that out, because on the train I saw another girl, and she was a maid to our Jewish family. And so she said, well, you know, I think I wrote all day, because we came there at night. And I told the woman that why I came, and she said, well, they moved away.
But your mother didn't go with you.
No.
Did you ever
My
see
mother
her?
stayed where she was.
Did
We
you get to
didn't
see
have
her
the
again?
money, we didn't have the, yeah. Okay, so when I was still with the girl where she had the job, I mean, she was a Jewish girl, and so they, on Friday, I think I got there on Friday, on Thursday or something, because on Friday, all the women there went to the open market to buy chickens and vegetables and stuff like that. And so when they get together, they talk. So this woman told the rest of the women that there is a girl who doesn't have any place where to go. And so this old lady says, my daughter is married in 3 weeks, I'll take her. So I went to live with them, and they were so crowded that two of us, me and one of her daughters, slept on one couch.
What was the family name? It's okay, it's been a long time.
I can't
didn't have to
remember.
them.
I
Okay.
can't remember, but they had two sons, two grandsons survived, and they were in the yeshiva in New York, and they came to see me once because they were mashgiach for the wine. So that way, it's really, it's interesting how things go. So she had me, and her daughter was a hat maker. So she was going to teach me how to make turbans and hats and stuff like that. And of course I worked, you know, I helped out. So then I got sick. I had whooping cough. And when that was over, I had malaria. And the doctor said I have to move away from there because I can't...
Give it to everybody else.
Because they never had any of these diseases. Mm-hmm. I had 104 temperature. So anyway, the doctor said they never heard of any of these things there, and I have to move someplace else. So they found a place for me in Debrecen, which the husband was in an insane asylum in Budapest, you know, to stay out of the army. And she was home with 2 children. And so she took me in and right away gave me a fur coat. And she went to see her husband in Budapest while I took care of her 2 children. And she was very generous. I remember I had to take some Shabbos food to some people and leave it in the front porch or by the door.
Were you feeling better at this point?
There, yeah, I was feeling already. I wasn't there very long, but I was there. Anyway, I was even taken to the movies and stuff like that. So then they heard that the Germans are coming following week. And it was before Pesach, so the following year. So they sent me there because their father, that was in Nyíregyház house, their father had vineyards, and they were going to put me between the Hungarians and the vineyard to work. So that, because they weren't afraid, I was afraid. And it's happened to be Pesach, and we all had to move in a ghetto in Kisvárda. It's another Jewish big city. So, boy, did I have all kinds of things happen to me. Well, then I couldn't go to the vineyard. I mean, we were locked up again. And then I got a card from my mother saying that they caught her. She was hiding in the woods in an orchard someplace. And somebody else with her had a child, and the child cried. And so they caught her, and she told where my mother is. And so, my mother said, so-and-so, Rachel told of me, and now I'm on the way to the ghetto. And I fainted. Oh, I fainted before, when I heard that what's happened to my rest of the family. I didn't cry, I just fainted. I fell down, and they had to bring me to. So, anyway, so from there, I changed my name, because if not, the gendarmes would have found me. So I changed my name from Farkas to Aus. Well, sorry, Aus. That was my mother's maiden name. Mm-hmm. So that they wouldn't be able to find me, because now this where we lived was Hungary, and there was Hungary. So then, anyway, so there they took me. From there they took me to Auschwitz, and I was the first on the truck, because my name was Aus. Start with an A.
A. Moved up to the front of the line.
Well, anyway, I think everybody's tired. You want me to talk about Auschwitz too?
Can you tell us at least a little bit?
Okay. Well, they took me to Auschwitz, and as I say, I was in the first thing. And it's happened, they took us by on the train, on the outside, where they do the, merchandise, where they load the merchandise. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and people were from Hungary, they didn't experience yet anything. So they were getting married there on the train. It took about 3 or 4 days to get there. So, because maybe they wouldn't separate them.
A married couple.
A married couple, or whatever. They gave us 2 pails, excuse me for using for bathrooms.
Yep.
And we got to Auschwitz, and they took us, then we got unloaded there. Mind you, that's all of these trips took days. It wasn't first class.
Right.
So we got to Auschwitz in the back of a building, and they told us to get undressed completely and walk in the door, the back door. And there, the clothes we were supposed to leave and everything else and outside. The shoes, everything. We got in the building, and there were hangers with with cutting machines that cut the hair every place. And they then had from the same ceiling water, and then they sprayed us with some type of naphtha. And I mean places where it was hurting very much. So cut off all the hair and everything else. And then we had to go to the front to leave, and there they gave us a dress that was just one dress with nothing else.
Like a uniform dress?
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of a military fabric dress. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it fitted you or not. They just gave it, give it, and those were Jewish people who would have to do that, mind you. All of the stuff, the shaving us, the spraying us with naphtha.
It's all Jews.
Yeah, they were working there. So then we went out, and they took us by March to where we're going to stay. And because anyway, the first night we were in Zigeunerlager, where what's the name? Zigeunerlager.
Gypsy camp?
No.
Yeah, it was gypsy.
Huh?
The gypsy, where the
The gypsies, yeah.
The same as Anna Hollander, same place.
Anne Hollander was in the same thing, but I was there first because they took me first.
A comes before H.
Yeah. Anyway, so then the buildings that they built for us were finished, and they took us to those buildings, and then I saw friends of mine there, and somebody from my town and stuff like that. They were all, and then they divided us into units, who was going to which unit. And the thing was, it was 3-story boards, low, medium, and high. And if you were heavy, they put you on the bottom. If you were lighter, you were on the top. And first they thought it's going to be 10, but it was about 13 to one of those places. And we were always informed. There was nothing between the boards, just boards. And in the middle, they weren't together, so our flesh went in there. And we all had to sleep on the side because there was no room, because they put in, instead of 10, 13. And sometimes if the upper things was too heavy, it fell down, that type of thing. So I was in Auschwitz for a long time. And I got to, I already had experience by that. So I got to the block eldest. There was a Jewish woman who was a block eldest. She was in charge of us.
Okay. She ran the block.
She ran. Now, there was over 1,000 people in one of those. And in the middle was some type of things built. I don't know, I wasn't there in the winter. I think for heating or something. I'm not sure what it was. But it was on both sides, these rows. And the woman who was in charge of us was a Czech woman. And I went and I introduced myself that I already was in one camp to her. And I came there because her legs were swollen, to massage her legs. I mean, it was my idea to get to know her.
Smart.
And so she used to kind of, when they needed people for work, she'd send me, because it's better to be outside, even if you're working, than inside being, and not being able to move. And we used to stand in a pail in the morning and in the evening. And you stood in a pail for hours. We got out like at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning, and we stayed until 9 or 10 o'clock until they got to us. And and people were just so weak that they were falling down, and from standing there. We were standing by 4. And so we were told by the block eldest, by this Jewish woman, when somebody falls down, pick him up and slap his face. Now, we were surrounded with electric wiring. Well, you know that, I guess. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people just went and committed suicide. They knew it. They went and touched it and died. But we were standing on a pail there, and then we were counted, and then we were told to get in. Now, we didn't have water. There were metal pipes in outside, rusty. We were told not to drink that water because it's going to kill us. Anyway, so that's part of my Auschwitz story. You think anybody wants to hear more?
Well, let me ask you. Do you? I don't know how much. I mean, I still have a few questions and stories.
You go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, my question is, if there's more, do you want to? Would you be willing to come back another night so you can tell us the rest?
Sure.
You'd be willing?
Sure.
Okay. So I'll tell you what.
Because it's kind of late, huh?
Well, there's so much to tell. I knew there was so much to tell, but I knew we had a better chance.
Besides, it's kind of very taxing on me too.
Okay. So, are you open to a question or two tonight, or do you want to wait for next time?
No, I can answer the questions.
Okay. So, a question or two for tonight, and then we'll also have a part 2. Anyone want to ask a question right now? Jessica?
I'm sorry if I missed this. What happened to all your brothers?
Oh, what happened to your brothers?
As far as I know, all of my brothers died until I heard that one is alive, that his name came through, but I don't know.
There should be within the lobby or on the seats. There's in the lobby. Please take, if you possibly, even in the farthest possible connection, might know someone. There's a sheet in the lobby that describes a little bit about Miriam's family and a photograph. If you would possibly know anyone who might know someone who could lead the family to find Miriam's brother, that would be tremendous. It's that same sheet with the picture is going to go out in an email to the whole shul with this recording. Good. So that maybe when people get this recording and they see the picture.
Because my daughters were trying to talk to everybody, write in We talked with Israel a few times and found out that there is a Farkash with the same name, but he is from another place.
Right. So it'd be Farkash or Farkis or any...
Farkash.
Farkash. Okay.
Be anything.
Right.
Depends on what country you're in, it could be any name.
Right.
Well, you know, people change when they...
Exactly, the way you
I
pronounce
was
it.
Miriam and now I'm Marian.
Right. Okay, well, so we're going to send out that letter and the photograph with this link on to listen to the lecture.
Yeah, but
Okay.
but when my brothers, you see, I didn't cry. What I did is I fainted when I heard about my family that they were killed. I was in Rudolph's Mill and I fainted and outside. I fell down, and it took a while to. I didn't cry. I don't think there was too much water in me to cry.
Right. Well, so then can we, if you would be willing, I want you to get some rest. Would you come back and join us in a few weeks and we can
Sure.
continue the story? Okay. I will tell you, you are, I know that you're a remarkable person already. I don't think I understood how many, whether it's survival tactics or moments you got from your mother in each step.
My mother. It was my mother.
Remarkable.
My mother always said, you cannot die twice.
Right.
So that's maybe what happened with my brother. Maybe he escaped.
Yeah.
Because he didn't, he was blonde, tall and beautiful.
So maybe he got away.
Maybe he got away. So
Well, I'm hopeful that maybe someone in the community will know someone when this goes out to
they'll
be able to help.
yeah, I hope so. Anyway, but all of my, he was a beautiful boy.
Which brother was that? What's his first name?
Avram
Avram Farkash.
Farkash.
Okay. So we'll look forward to next month. Thank you so much, Mary.
You're welcome.